I was moved to tears this past April when one of my daughters gave me a special and unexpected gift. A few weeks after Colby had sent students home and our synagogue closed its doors to the public, I began teaching my Hebrew classes from the classroom of the synagogue. "I want to come," she would yell at me each morning. Having a hard enough time teaching crestfallen students scattered across the country as it was, I wasn't going to invite my daughter to join me during my Zoom classes, though it probably would have cheered my students up. One day, as I was opening up the door to leave our house, she handed me a small lavender painting. "Thanks, honey. Who is this picture for?" I asked, expecting her to mention the name of one of the members of the congregation she painted for regularly. "It's a gift for the shul," she said. "Give it to the shul. I miss shul." "I miss shul too, honey. I'll bring it to the classroom." Even though I was one of the few people who could enter the building, shul really hasn't been shul without all of you. It wasn't shul without the hugs at the beginning of services, the kugel at the potluck, and Melissa and Connie DJing one of our parties. My kids, like quite a few of you, weren't really interested in watching Ima or Mama on Zoom singing prayers. And saying Shabbat blessings at home felt like an out-of-place burden that just reminded them of what they had lost. They didn't want Zoom shul or school or playgroup. They wanted to be at synagogue. They wanted to be at Educare. They wanted to be crawling under the tables in the Hillel room, stealing students' food and playing their favorite games. They wanted to come, capital H, home. The feeling of distance from home, that low-grade sadness and mourning for what should be but isn't, is a core religious emotion in the Jewish consciousness. It's called galut, or exile. Throughout our diasporic history, we have built synagogues, families, and full lives throughout the four corners of the earth. While each Shabbat and festival, whether we understood it in Hebrew or not, we recalled our lost homeland and a desire to be worthy of return. On the high holidays, we often speak about a more spiritual exile, of wanting to return to our original and pure selves, the selves created in the image of God and close with the divine presence. This high holidays, we are dealing with distance, a kind of distance, a form of exile that is new. So let me say that again. This high holidays, we are dealing with a different kind of distance, a form of exile that's really new. Not only are we distant from an ancient temple in our ancestral homeland, not only are we distant from the image and presence of God, but we are distant from one another and our mikdash me'at, our little temple that has sustained Jewish life in Waterville for over a century. This distance is never celebrated, but it is accepted in our tradition. And we are given a roadmap of how to move on when we are distanced from our true homes. Our relationship to being distant from home has always been multifaceted. Sometimes we call it exile, but other times we employ the less freighted or negative word diaspora. However, even the term galut, or exile, is not so simple. Galut shares the same Hebrew root with the word legalot, to discover. And our diasporic existence, while fragile and precarious, has been a place of discovery, creativity, and dynamism. Without Babylon, there would be no Talmud or Gaonic literature. Without the vineyards of medieval France and the challenge of and cross-pollination with Christendom, there would be no Rashi. And without the spirited interchange among Maimonides, the Islamic world, and the legacy of Greco-Roman philosophy, we would not have the Guide to the Perplexed. If our ancestors allowed themselves to reside in a constant state of mourning for what was, instead of accepting the value and potential of what is, our tradition would have withered on the vine. Instead, we made a place for longing, our liturgy. We made a place and a time for that lachrymose song that reminded us that something had indeed been lost, and we hope to return. And then, after Havdalah, we make the most of what we have where we are. During the Babylonian exile, the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verses 5 through 10, gives us direct and clear instructions about how to move on when we are distant from home. Benu vatim v'shevu v'nit'u ganot v'ichlu et paryan. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their fruit. Kechu nashim v'holidu banim uvanot. Ukchu livnechem nashim ve'et benotechem tnu la'anashim. V'teladna banim uvanot orvu sham ve'al tim'atu. V'dirshu et shalom ha'ir asher higleti etchem shama. V'hitpalalu be'ada el Adonai ki vishloma yeh lachem shalom. Build houses and live in them. Plant gardens and eat their fruit. Take wives and beget sons and daughters, and take wives for your sons, and give your daughters to husbands, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there, do not decrease. And seek the welfare of the city to which I have exiled you, and pray to the Lord on its behalf. For in its prosperity you shall prosper. Ki cho amar Adonai tzvaot Elohei Yisrael, al yashi'u lachem nevi'echem asher bekirbechem v'kosmechem ve'al tishme'u el chalomotechem asher atem machleimim. Ki v'kesher hem nib'im lachem bishmi lo shalachtim ne'um Adonai. For thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, let not the prophets and diviners in your midst deceive you, and pay no heed to the dreams they dream. For they prophesy to you in my name falsely. I did not send them, declares the Lord. For thus said the Lord, when Babylon's 70 years are over, I will take note of you, and I will fulfill to you my promise of favor, to bring you back to this place. Even when far from home, a home we know and love, we must plant orchards, bear and raise children, and take joy in both. We don't grow for an unknown future. We have to eat the fruit in the temporary shelters we create for ourselves, and not deprive ourselves of the simple joys of life. We have to seek the welfare of the places we find ourselves, for we cannot find peace if our neighbors suffer in chaos. There is a burden and a blessing in finding ourselves in unknown and uncharted territories. We might not know where we are, but we have an opportunity to teach, share, and animate Torah in ways that weren't previously possible. We must resist the urge to follow false prophets and people who, sensing our sorrow, our desperation, and our confusion, promise phony messianic redemption, snake oil remedies, or easy fixes to complex problems. They see an opportunity. They do not speak for God. And then, last but not least, we must keep faith and hope alive. In order to flourish in exile, you need to believe that somehow, some way, you will find your way back home. even if you and your homeland have changed significantly since the time of your departure. Somehow, some way, we will find ourselves back again at 291 Main Street. For now, we are uniquely blessed to be able to meet outside on Drummond Avenue. And though many of us may love the offering of a 1 hour and 15-minute service for the high holidays, we are going back. We are going back to the Torah scrolls smuggled from the old country to Waterville over 100 years ago. We are going back to the silver breastplates and crowns for our Torahs, dedicated in honor of anniversaries and bar and bat mitzvahs. We are going back to the kitchen, where every year we fry pounds and pounds of potatoes for our Hanukkah party. We are going back to the satin red benches in the sanctuary, where we sit in silence and weep for Yizkor each year, and where we gossip with friends over beers and mixed drinks at the Megillah reading each Purim. I don't know how or when, but I am pretty sure it isn't going to take 2,000 years. And when we go back, we will be different people and a different community. And I'm sure our building will be a little bit different too. We will come together again like a couple, relearning how to be with each other after a long separation, drawn together by history and love, and confused about how to create a new relationship out of the sacred shards of a shattered past. And in the meantime, we keep those memories alive. We bring those little lavender paintings so that the shul doesn't get lonely or feel neglected while we are away. We invest in its future so that when we return, we can safely go to the bathroom. We keep it clean enough so that the minute we are ready, we can get back to cooking kosher versions of global favorites for our annual fundraiser and the traditional foods of our festivals that serve as the most visceral and powerful connection to our familial pasts. And in the meantime, we plant vineyards where we are. The foundation of the Jewish people has never been physically stable for long. Our people's history is replete with stories of communities that got comfortable in new territories and in an instant had to find a new resting place in a hurry. The stable ground upon which our families grew and our futures was not physical. We built our people on the territory of shared traditions, languages, narratives, and values, passed lovingly from generation to generation. And that uniquely Jewish territory gave us just enough security, or at least just enough faith, to believe it was worth investing in an uncertain future. For as long as the synagogue building is closed, it is all the more important to nurture that soil of textual richness. Close out the night on Zoom with us, or alone in your bedrooms with the evening Shema, praying for peace among you and all whom you encounter. Read Bible stories and PJ library books with your kids on Shabbat afternoons. Light Shabbat candles each Friday night, even if you can't manage to get the last challah from Hannaford on Friday afternoon. Learn Torah with us on weekday afternoons and evenings, so that when you return to synagogue, you feel more comfortable and a greater sense of ownership over our tradition, its enduring values, and its internal logic. And when you're alone in your backyard gardens or snowy, snowshoeing trails, say a blessing. It doesn't matter if it's in Hebrew or English or Spanish or any other language. In this period of exile, sanctify your space and time by stopping every once in a while to say thank you. Todah. Thank you for every moment you are here in this imperfect but incredibly real place. A place waiting for you to sow seeds, reap new insights, and grow into a person and into a community deserving of the name Yehudim, Jews, Yehudim, quite literally, those who are thankful. May this be a sweet new year for our community. May we harvest fresh apples and sweet honey from our orchards and apiaries. May we eat the fruits of our individual and collective labor. And may we find joy among the tears we shed on the banks of the Babylon. L'shana tova u'metuka, to a sweet and good new year.